Welcome back, friends. In this episode, we're leaving Malaysia and we're arriving in another country, the Philippines. This episode is all about the island vibes, so stay tuned and come join us. We didn't have a lot of time to spend in the Philippines, so we decided to focus just on one area. We decided to fly into the island of Palawan. So we could fly here pretty easily from Malaysia. We went through Manila directly to Puerto Princesa, the capital in the area, and we spent a couple nights in Puerto Princesa to start off our tour.
Now, what immediately struck me in the Philippines was their creativity, their engineering, their inventiveness. I love their boats, and we'll get to those in a minute with their dual outriggers that we rode around and did our tours on. But the first thing I saw when we stepped off the airplane was their version of the tuk-tuk, which they call tricycles, and these are everywhere, just like tuk-tuks elsewhere. These are built-out motorcycles. They've built these cabs around them. They can carry 3 or 4 or 5 people, and I just loved taking these around town. So the tricycle was number two. Number three, in Puerto Princesa, we actually get out to their craft brewery, which was excellent. They had great beer. But the bartender saw me staring at this weird contraption in the corner. What is this game? This is Pinoy Pool, or the Philippines version of a pool table, where you have discs as your pool balls and a larger disc that's your cue ball. I'm absolutely going to build one of these when we get home. The table even spins around so you can play it in a small space. So we enjoyed some beers right off the bat and a few games of Filipino pool. I look forward to crafting one of these up when we get back to Ottawa.
From Puerto Princesa, we caught a bus up to El Nido, which is kind of more north on the island. We only stayed here for one night, as the next day we got a shuttle out to a small island on kind of the northeast side. We got a small ferry for maybe 20 minutes, and that got us to the Isla experience. And this is kind of a eco resort. It's very basic. It's huts on the beach. It's really a nice setting, beautiful spot. It's kind of relaxed. They do have some snorkeling gear, and we got out and did some snorkeling right off the beach. It was kind of a cool shipwreck that you could swim out to and snorkel. So we had a really good time enjoying this place.
They also had, was it 3 or 4 pigs that happened to live there at the resort. So each evening at about 4:45, pigs would come down to the beach for supper. So we got a little bit of footage of that. That was just kind of unique. But the real highlight here, I thought, was the service and our hosts. So a big shout out to Hanel, to Ethel, and especially to Mary G. So we got chatting around the campfire, and we got talking about karaoke, because I wondered if it was as big in the Philippines as it's been in some of the other countries we visited. So we had a great chat about Celine Dion, how everybody there knows who Celine Dion is, and then we chatted about Bryan Adams, and we got talking about Kenny Rogers, because that's one of my favorites for karaoke. So the next night, wouldn't you know it, just after supper, as we're all up at the common area, she turns on the karaoke machine and actually belts out a couple of tunes for us. She did a Bryan Adams number, and she did a Kenny Rogers number, one that I didn't even know, and did an amazing job of it. So that was just a real surprise treat. Thank you so much, Mary G, and do keep singing.
After the Isla experience, we got ourselves back to El Nido and we spent a couple days here. It's a really kind of scenic town, a bit touristy, but very pretty with the kind of bay and the water and the big kind of limestone cliffs, and kind of a bit similar to some of the other stuff we'd seen, but still in a nice kind of unique way. And the thing to do here is a boat ride out to different islands, and very scenic. There's kind of four different boat rides, and there's a bunch of tour companies, and they all kind of offer the same thing. So just pick a boat tour and go out on it. So we picked tour A, which is the most popular. It kind of does the main spots, not that far from the main kind of bay, and we hopped on board.
Which was itself kind of an adventure because they don't
Yes.
pull up to a dock or anything. They pull into within about 20 or 30 feet of the shore, which is about up to your waist still. So it's a bit of a chore to climb on with your dry bag, climb off when you get to the island, and so on. It was all part of the adventure. And the waves were up a bit that day.
They were up quite a bit that day.
So even just getting out there was a little interesting, and they actually cut our tour short. We skipped the last beach because they had heard from the Coast Guard, who had kind of called the boats in. The winds were really picking up. So a few shots here of our stops, as well as cruising the high seas on our Bangkok boat. Even though it was a bit of a touristy town, we enjoyed it here. We had a couple of great meals, and we discovered down an alleyway one of their local gambling favorites, where you drop a ping pong ball onto a big mass of numbers, sort of a card game. Holly actually was a high roller here. You turned about 50 cents Canadian into about $1.50 Canadian, and I guess quit while you were ahead.
Yes.
Very exciting.
We got a bus back to Puerto Princesa, and the day that we arrived back, it was actually a Chinese New Year, and our hotel had a kind of a buffet evening celebration, and they had kind of a singer, they had fireworks, they had this local troupe come in that did the dragon dance for the Lunar New Year. And that was really neat to see. It was kind of a lot of fun, and lots of locals out for that, so it was kind of a neat night.
Our final adventure here was a day trip from Puerto Princesa out to the Underground River, which is actually the longest navigable underground river in the world. I think about 8.5 kilometers. Our boat did about a kilometer and a half on a guided small boat tour here. And one of the key things that they reminded you frequently was if you're looking up at the ceiling, keep your mouth closed because there's lots of bats. So we kept our mouth shut and enjoyed the tour.
It was a pretty neat tour. I mean, it was another cave system, but this time we were in a boat in a river. It is a part of the new list of the top 7 natural wonders of the world. I think it is number 4 on it, which is pretty cool. And it's also a UNESCO World Heritage. And it was another excuse for a boat ride.
The tail end of that, we also did a stop for a little mangrove tour and learned about the importance of mangrove forests and got to see another water monitor. We've seen a few of these while we've roamed around our last couple of countries. That just about wraps it up for our time here in the Philippines. I had a great time once I got places. I really enjoyed the boat tours. I really enjoyed the Isla experience. I just found that some of the details of transportation were a little bit difficult or a little bit disorganized, I guess. It started with our transfer in Manila Airport was a little bit chaotic and not great communication. Some of the buses were just really windy. It took you a while to get places. Once you got there, it was pretty awesome. We met some awesome people, and I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I would say the other thing to factor in is weather. If you're on the ocean, you're really at the mercy of the weather. And I don't know, like we didn't do a 2, 3 day island hopping tour for that reason, is we didn't want to be stuck on pretty rough seas. And I think that's just kind of part of it. We have 7,000 islands. Getting in between the islands is it can be tough. If you have great weather, it's going to be great, but you're kind of stuck with that, and so it's hard to do in a short period of time. I think with the Philippines, you need to do some time if you really want to see a lot of the country. You need a couple weeks. The other thing I would say is the snorkeling was great. I think they have really nice coral. They have some really great spots to snorkel. I'm sure diving would be amazing as well. And so that was kind of a highlight, as well as the people. We had some fantastic encounters with the locals and a really fun time.
Yep, I would. If I were to do it again, I'd maybe do a little longer, a little slower tempo, but certainly glad that we swung through.
It was time to move on from the Philippines. Where are we going to next?
Next up, it's a whole other country, a whole other climate. We are headed for 3 weeks in Japan. Now, here, well, first thing I do is I buy some pants because it is considerably colder than the beach. But we have some great food. We've got some great ski adventures that we rolled into this one, and we spend a week in the biggest city in the world, Tokyo. It's a whole new experience. Come back soon. We'll see you in Japan.